There
That's
you
freaking
are.
crazy, dude. What the heck, man? Hey, if you this is the
Okay, well, we're
longest,
gonna we
hey,
got to
listen,
keep
listen.
going. No,
I
go.
know we are. I think this is the longest that I haven't cussed.
And you had some moments to do it.
Yes, I did have many more. Like, yeah. So at least I have a vocabulary other than cussing.
This episode is brought to you by Merge Marketing for all of your needs on print, design, web page design, and security. Go to mergemarketinginc.com.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Submerge Life podcast and videocast if you are watching this on YouTube. Just go over to submergelife.com. You can listen to all the episodes, see all the links for the different platforms that we are on, where we are hearing people's journey. And so today I have a very special guest, not special. I'm just kidding. Special guest, Monique. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Tony? Thank you for
Come
having me on here
on.
today.
You know,
Whatever, dude.
we always have to give each other a hard time. So, special, not special.
Yeah, I'm very special. God thinks I'm special.
That's for
That's
sure.
all that matters. My mom does too.
Oh, wow. Did she give you an award
She
certificate?
does. Yep. Every day she's like, "You're special." I'm like, "Thank you."
So on
What's
this
going on?
podcast, we ask two very important questions. Number one, how are you
Okay.
submerging life? And then the journey that took you there. So let's start with the first one. How are you submerging into life? So what are you doing now? Because I haven't talked to you really in quite a while. I mean, yes, we did talk, just a few minutes ago, but I really haven't heard from you. But what are you doing? Because I saw something about stewardess or something. What's going on?
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, I'll definitely get into that. Currently, I'm submerging to life through the recovery of self. And so you're probably asking, what does that entail? Well, that
Hmm.
entails just a long journey of getting to know the true self of me. And
Okay.
so, yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Excellent. So just a little backstory of present day. You have a couple of kids. Yeah.
Correct? Yes,
You got
the
a
twins.
bunch
They're
of kids
four
just
years old.
running around. Awesome, awesome.
I
So
decided
what
to do
else
it
you
over again.
So what else are you doing? I mean, where are you working? How's everything going?
Okay. Well, currently I am back to recruiter because God had a different plan. You mentioned a stewardess. Yes, that was my plan, but I think my ego
Hmm.
wanted that more than God did. And
Mm,
sometimes when we think like God's in the midst, well, I think I was telling God what I wanted instead of really seeking Him and asking Him what He wanted. So,
hmm.
unfortunately, passport didn't come in. And the awesome part is, though, I had peace about it. My ego was shot. Like, I was like, what? Like what's going on? I can't believe this. But when God gives us peace like that, it's I know it has to be His will. So I went back to my recruiter position. I currently hire individuals for the airport over here locally in Las Vegas.
Okay, awesome. All right, so now let's just get into the journey because this journey is a
Ah,
wild one.
yes, it is.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I'm just going to start from the beginning, if I may, and just let you know, yes, I am going to get very transparent. That's the only thing I know how to do is just be real. So there's going to be, if there's any kids around or anything like that, I'm not sure if you may want them to hear this, but it's definitely,
True point.
it's messy. Life gets messy, and for me to get to where I'm at today, there's definitely a long journey. So let me go ahead and just start. I don't want to get too much into my childhood, but it does have an effect of my recovery of self because
Hmm.
I had to recognize that fear came into my life at a very young age. I basically saw my father die of an overdose, so that brought fear at age 4. And with him
Okay.
dying, no one ever told me where he went or what happened. So out of sight, out of mind. That was my coping mechanisms for years, especially with relationships. When I would get into a relationship, if that didn't go well, out of sight, out of mind, on to the next, and just um, because of what happened in my childhood. And
Yeah.
so, grew up poor. So there goes poor. I needed acceptance from everybody because I was teased because I was poor. I didn't even know I was poor. I was just a happy kid. But that
Yeah.
carried on to my teenage years. And my acceptance is what kind of got me into the next stage, which I'll go ahead and share with you.
Yeah, isn't that funny though? Like when we are looking back, like we didn't know these things because I wasn't well off either. It's like you just thought it was regular that you only had, bread and no lunch meat and just these things.
Right?
Then it's like, wait, we were broke.
I know.
All
I'm like,
right.
what do
So
you mean? Hey, what do you mean Pro Wings isn't a name brand?
you're like, yeah, no, you make pancakes with, I guess pancake mix and that's it with flour. It was, I mean, with water. It was great. What do you mean milk? You don't add milk to pancakes or eggs.
Right?
No, that's not how we
Yeah,
did it.
exactly. No, definitely not. Definitely
All
not.
right. So
So,
sorry, little sidestep
it's
there.
okay.
Yeah, let's go on to the next part. Okay. So you were
Okay.
growing up, school.
Yes.
What happened during
Uh,
school?
so during school, I found acceptance. I found acceptance with the party crowd. And that's where my
Mm,
addiction started. By age 9, I was drinking. By age 10, I was smoking pot. By age 14, I was a full blown meth addict. And so that party scene is what accepted me for who I was, which I had no idea who I was because I was in like AP
yeah.
classes in high school, and doing excelling well, but yet I was ditching every day. I got kicked out of high school for selling drugs. I was just that girl that wanted to be noticed, and I did it the wrong way. I know I could have been
Mm,
noticed for my academics, but that wasn't enough because I didn't get the same recognition and reputation, and like everybody knew me. I was like a social butterfly, which that I
yeah.
still am. And so it wasn't really clicky. I just got along with everybody, and
Yeah.
that spiraled
So let
down.
me let
I
me ask you
Go ahead,
let
please.
me ask you when in the starting of the substance and alcohol, did it all happen at once or was it a gradual thing?
You know what? It was progressive. It was definitely first start off with just smoking weed, and then once I was introduced to meth, that was my drug of choice for many years. It progressed. As you know, I didn't
Hmm.
even know I was an addict, Tony, for a very, very long time. I thought I was just partying, as a teenager
Hmm.
does. I thought the running away all the time was just part of adolescent age, and I didn't take into effect that I was a full blown meth addict until my early 20s when I
Mm,
decided to get help. Yeah. So that was a really rude awakening. I was always triggered
yeah.
by emotions. I'm a very emotional woman. I could say that today.
Hmm.
Before, back then, I had no emotions. I was very narcissistic. I blamed everybody but myself. I was very vindictive, manipulative, because I knew during
Hmm.
high school all I had to do is smile or or talk my way out of things, which gives me a
Hmm.
really good point doing sales really well. But the
Hmm.
fact of that, it was also a curse because it didn't really get me too far in a positive way.
Yeah. So you said you didn't realize it until you were 20 that you were an addict. How did that, like, where was that turning point? What happened?
So I had my first son. I married my high school sweetheart. I had my first son, and soon after, a situation happened that affected me emotionally. Well, as mentioned, I'm an emotional woman, so emotional triggers was what led me back to basically a relapse, as we may call it, when someone has sustained sobriety. I sustained sobriety throughout my pregnancy, even after my pregnancy for 3 years, but I didn't have recovery. And later on, I'll definitely explain the difference. So as soon
Hmm.
as something happened, I didn't know how to deal with life and life terms. And so my coping mechanism was to go drink and then eventually spiral down to my meth addiction again. And finally, I decided to get help when my first son was probably 2 or 3. And Tony, you know what? Back then, I would never admit that I picked drugs over my child. Like that sounds horrible, but that's what I
Right, right.
did. And today, I could tell people that because it's part of my journey, it's part of my story. And I know I'm not the only one, but maybe I'm the only one brave enough to admit that today.
Mm, yeah, and that's super important to just remind people. That's why why I do this podcast. I just it's not just talking to people. Like I know some of your story, some of the people
For
I
sure.
already know some of their story, but I want to share this podcast so that people know that they're not alone, that they can make it through, they can fight it, they're strong enough. And so just you sharing your story is going to give somebody looking for their answer or looking for that strength to keep going. Okay, so you went, you found some help, and
Hmm.
what was that like?
So I went into a inpatient program. My first marriage, I basically at that time, I basically it was a broken marriage. I broke it, and I could say that today. It was
Hmm.
definitely all my fault. And so I knew that I didn't want to, how can I say? I didn't know I had reservations. A reservation is still in the backside of your mindsight, of your hindsight that you still want to use, you still
Yeah.
want to party. I thought I was done. Many times I thought it was done. So I went to a rehabilitation program. I completed it, and immediately when I got out, I can't recall what happened, but it was just another relapse. And I'm the person that they call in recovery as far as like constant relapser because of the insecurities I had, because of the low self esteem I had. And so, besides
Mhm.
with addiction, which also brings that, I also have that from childhood, adolescenthood. Because when you don't know self, you have facades. And unless you peel those masks off, those insecurities are there. I never felt emotionally secure. I never felt any kind of security. Didn't even know what that even meant. So it was just constant self sabotage in my life and constant relapsing just because I didn't feel worthy. If I may
Mhm.
share openly my relationship with God, I didn't grow up with God. I didn't, all I knew is like when we passed by a church in Pico Rivera in California, we would do like this. That's all I knew, and then I knew that I got baptized at 4 in a Catholic church, but I didn't know God. So when I first got introduced to Him as a young adult, I didn't trust Him. I didn't know that He could love me for who I was and
Mhm.
all the mistakes I did.
All right, so I remember back in the day that you would call me because you couldn't even leave your room with that anxiety, and you felt like well, at least what you were communicating to me is that you didn't feel good enough because you needed to go do out sales and meet people, and it just stopped you.
Yeah. Before I get into it, I just want to say thank you. You were so patient with me back then because, like, you were my partner as far as like, you were my business partner and my friend. And as much as I wanted to go, pursue the business, because let me just share a little bit to people who don't know, me and Tony had a business together, and I know that God had given it to me. But every time I attempted to go do sales, like you mentioned, I was just crippled by fear, and that's where the
Hmm.
insecurities came. But you know what? I want to share with everyone that you can be free from anxiety. I've been free and
Hmm.
delivered from anxiety since 2014. There was a time where they thought I had multiple sclerosis because my
Hmm.
mind, it's called psychosomatic. Your mind takes over your body. So the anxiety had such a huge traumatic effect on my body to where I couldn't walk sometimes. But I also believe it was induced by also because of the using, and
Hmm.
the disease as they would call it, because addiction is a disease, would tell me go get high because as soon as I would go to do my DOC, my drug of choice, I would immediately be able to have that falsified strength, a falsified courage to go do what I had to do. So all along, it was
Hmm.
a trick from the enemy. I know now. It was
Hmm.
the obsession of the mind of my disease telling me, hey, if you go use, you'll be able to go do sales. And you know what? Every time
Hmm.
I went and used, unfortunately, I would bang it on sales. But I knew
Hmm.
that wasn't the cure, for my anxiety. I just didn't know how to get rid of it. Yeah, it was an awful point in my life. I also had PTSD at that time too. So
Yeah, yeah. So you felt a lot of insecurity back then, and now you've talked about where you're overcoming all that. You do have a better outlook on yourself, because I remember that being one of your things, and I think it was not just insecurity because of a physical thing, but because you didn't have a car, you're gonna have to take a
mhm,
bus everywhere.
mhm.
And I remember one time you're like, "Yeah, but who's gonna want to buy from me? Like I have to take a bus." I'm like, "How do they know that you have to take a bus? And if they do, who cares?" Like, put your high heels in your backpack, in your purse, go wear your little sneakers, and then when half a block away from the business, switch out your shoes. They're not gonna know, and who cares even if they did, right?
You're so right. I remember that because Yeah, that's exactly what my mind was telling me. They're not going to buy from you, but you know what? Man, those sales. So like, I knew it was only God in my life that was doing it because at that time I was so weak within, and it
Hmm.
sounds cliche, but like what the Bible says, as far as when you're weak, He is strong, and I was so weak-minded, and that I needed Him to do that, and it flourished, it was successful until I self-sabotaged, as mentioned early on,
Hmm.
when we discussed, that was my MO, self sabotage every time something reached a plateau of success, because I never thought I was worthy of love, worthy of success, worthy of having a good life. I was always striving instead of thriving. So yeah, that's the way I lived, and Tony, if now it's different, if I may, as far as continue
Hmm.
today, finally, with many years of going back and forth, lost marriages, ruined relationships, picking drugs over my kids, I finally had enough. And I think I had to come to a place of surrender. See, I never knew surrender was a daily practice. That's my fault. So I felt like I was always in bondage. I was either bondage in my addiction, bondage in religion, which I say that people might think, what does that mean? What that means is that I was critical of myself, so I was critical of others. I was very judgment of myself, so I judged others. I was very, all these things, how my relationship affects with God will affect with others. So I had a bondage, and I didn't know how to get free from it. And so
So
finally,
what?
I had enough. Go ahead.
So it was an up and down roller coaster, basically, all the way until a year ago, right? Like, what was the
Correct.
longest that you went without using, where you were like sober minded, sober thought, and just sober?
You know what? There's a difference between sober and recovery, though, because even though I was sober, I still had those character defects.
Mm,
So I've
yeah.
had 3 years sober. I've had 4 years sober. The time I was pregnant afterwards. I've had a length of time of sobriety, but I didn't have recovery. So I still had those characters. I was still vindictive. I was still manipulative. I was still, as far as insecure. I didn't. I treated people. I was very selfish, and that's how I
Hmm.
was. And even with sobriety. And I'm glad that you mentioned as far as this past year. So after 20 years of up and down of my journey, and it is a journey. It is. I've learned so much about myself, and unfortunately, and others had to be part of that, whether it was a negative effect or a positive effect throughout my journey, whether mentors or relationships that guys had to tell me like, do you even know? Like you're a user. Like I use people. I was a user of people, user of drugs, user of everything, and just the reality finally just caught me. I had a chance to be a mom again, as you mentioned, with my twins. So I have a
Hmm.
22-year-old and my twins. And I felt like this was a do over. The awesome part of recovery is that we get two lives. We get our first life and we get our second life. And
Mm.
my second life, I started doing some work within. I started going to Christian therapy. I started asking the
Hmm.
Holy Spirit to really just get rid of all these defects. The thing is, though, Tony, I didn't understand that these character defects could be part of me because I wanted God to remove all of them. But now today, going forward, I embrace my defects because it's part of me. I could, believe me, I could let any of those defects go rampant if I really want to, but because I surrender every day, and because I'm crazy. I'm not sure if you guys can know that, but Tony does. Like, but it's like today I try to ask the Holy Spirit to be more part of my life than me because I know if I try to run my life, I'm going to destroy it. And all those character defects, I embrace them. I keep them dormant because I know them.
Hmm.
Once you're aware of your defects, then you can change them. Until one is aware, until I was aware of my defects,
Hmm.
I was in denial for so many years. So those of you guys who are listening today, I definitely, if you want change, definitely start looking within and seeing those character
Hmm.
defects and maybe writing them down or looking more research or asking God to reveal them to you because they're part of us, and that's okay if they're part of us, but you don't have to live in that kind of way. And so this
Yeah.
past year, yeah, I was tired, and I went to outpatient program. Once again, I had relapse, a marriage just due to some. I'm not going to discuss as far as what happened, what
Yeah. You
just a
don't need
lot of
to.
hurt on my end, and I didn't know how to deal with it, so I just did what I knew what to do. I knew my escape, and unfortunately,
Hmm.
it came out good because I put myself in an outpatient program. I didn't want my babies to get taken away. I never wanted that, and so I knew that. So with inpatient, that's easy. All they do, you wake up, they tell you what to do, you eat. It's like a vacation. I know how to do that,
Hmm.
but I knew this time I had to do this on my own. So took the
Yeah.
steps. I am part of another program. I go to meetings every day. I found a sponsor, and I started really peeling all these layers off. With not, I can't do this alone. Like I need other people in order for me to be healthy.
And so this has been going on for the last year.
Yes, I'll be celebrating 1 year in recovery, not just sobriety, April 13th. And that's a big thing for me. Like, I was so proud of myself. Like today I love myself. And I don't care if I'm
Good
a little
job.
crazy. I like it. And, and it's okay if I make mistakes every day. Like, every day I make mistakes. But today, if I make
Yeah.
a mistake, I can apologize. I don't have to be prideful about things. It's just, I'm a different woman. And I'm glad
Yeah.
that's why I'm able to, like, so many people are scared to get human. We're all human, and
Yeah.
so many people are
Yeah.
scared to like really share that ugliness about us or our ugly past. And today I know it, and I just hope that it helps somebody. And I'm blessed for you to even ask me to share my story today.
So how do you keep some of those defects that you talked about at bay? Where you embrace them, but you keep them at bay, you keep them dormant. How do you keep continue to do that every single day? Because some of those are hard, right? Some of
Yes.
those defects are very difficult to fight, and they've been around for so long within you.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. The way I would answer that is I pray. I literally every morning, I have a sponsor, which in the program of, as far as the meetings that I go to without giving too much information, and
Hmm.
we go over them and one of the steps, and it's to acknowledge your character defects. And so I ask God, I know them now because I went over them, and I ask God, well, instead of lust, please put purity within me. Instead of, being selfish, God, please remove the defective character of selfishness, and please replace it with giving. Uh, all of these character defects have an opposite. And it's basically, that's what I've learned through this program.
Do you think that you're going to need a sponsor for the rest of your life?
I will always need my sponsor for the rest of my life. And it's okay because I don't got great ideas up there in my mind, and I'm okay with that. Like, I, I don't know really anything. And I was that girl that knew everything. So I thought, so, oh, you tell me something. Oh, I know. You remember. It's always, I know, I know.
Yeah.
No, I don't know nothing. And a sponsor, I have a support group that I could call at any time. I could open my heart today to individuals. It's
Mm.
different. I know for the rest of my life, I'll be going to meetings. And for the rest of my life, like, I give all glory to God because He's the one that did this. I'm just willing. If you have a willingness to change, you can change. If you stay closed minded and just in denial, then the change doesn't happen. So I try to stay willing every day, but it's me asking God, like, please give me a willingness because I'm
Yeah.
stubborn. That willingness doesn't come naturally.
So what keeps you calling your sponsor every day? Keep pushing and keep moving forward and not looking backwards.
So my motivation, I can say, is definitely my children, but ultimately is my peace. Today, I have peace every single day I wake up, and I've always been a happy girl, so that's not it. It's joy, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to give up my peace for anyone. Whether it's a relationship, whether it's a situation, things happen in life. Now I understand that
Hmm.
life gets lifey, really lifey, and I have to be ready to know that I can call my sponsor anytime of the day. I have a support group to go to, so that's my immediate go to. And but ultimately, it has to be God because sometimes
Hmm.
people don't answer the phone. They could be busy. My sponsor may be busy. My support group may be
Hmm.
busy. So I have to be able to go to God first, and He has to be my number one. He has to be direct that direct connect before anything else.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
And I want
you know,
success. I want to be able to help others. That's the reason. That's what keeps me going too. I do a lot of service. I go to a lot of rehabilitation programs and talk and tell
yeah.
them my story. So, yeah.
Well, I hope that you can come back to this podcast when you're going through those moments and you need to be reminded of that because I know in my life, I haven't gone into substance or anything, but in certain situations, I needed to be reminded of the words that I've told other people and
Yeah.
now you have a recording that you can go back to at 30-minute mark, whatever it is. I don't know what it's going to be after I edit, but so that you can see yourself, or you can hear yourself speaking it back to you, right?
Thank you. Yeah, this is amazing. This is a great opportunity, even though like we had so many technical difficulties.
And people won't even know. People won't even know how many
No.
difficulties we've had, because I'm gonna cut it, I'm gonna edit it, I'm gonna put it all together, and nobody's ever gonna know
Yeah, that's so
until now, because
strange.
now they hear it. So yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody that's listening that is on that verge, they don't know if they want to stop or if they want to keep going in life, and it just in general, like they just want to give up, or they just want to just jump right into the substance every single day, every moment. What would you tell that person?
I would tell that person just to stay 1 minute. Just wait 1 minute and just breathe before you even think about going or trying any substance. I wish as even adolescents, if you have a child or even teenager, talk to them about it because no one ever talked to me about it. I know it sounds kind of weird because they talk about it at school, but when
Hmm.
it comes from a parent, it's different. Also, I would say that take that moment just to pray. If you know God or if you just have a higher power, just take 1 second because one more minute you're able to stay clean. One more minute, you're able to have that, another chance. And there's also hotlines that you can call at any time for AA and NAAA for Alcoholic Anonymous, NA for Narcotic Anonymous. And, just reach out to someone, call a friend, call somebody because you don't have to do this alone. I know I didn't.
And then I have a just
Oh,
an
man.
observation. I have an
Yes.
observation. What are you doing in Vegas? Like,
Well,
if of all the places to live with the things that you're dealing with, you're in Vegas of all places. Really?
yeah,
Really?
people ask that. I know. It sounds weird, right? But I found recovery in Vegas. Like if I was to go back to Fresno, where you're at, that's my old stomping ground. I know today I could go back anytime and live there and be fine, but Vegas is where I
Wow.
found recovery. It sounds crazy. There's such a huge recovery here. I mean, just the community. There's sober karaoke. There's always something to do inside Vegas. I know it
Mm.
sounds weird. People always give it. They're like, "How'd you get sober in Vegas?" I'm like, I know. It doesn't make sense. But I absolutely love it here. I don't know. I've met a lot of good people here and, had a chance to really just grow here. So I have a sweet
Yeah.
spot in my heart for Vegas.
Well, I'm proud of you, Monique. Good job.
Thank
You
you.
keep
Thank
pushing.
you.
You get knocked down, but you get right back up again. Knocked down,
Yes.
get right back up again. Reminds me of
Yes.
a higher calling song that we used to do, or that some of us used to do. But good job. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with?
Just learn to be kind to yourself. I think that was my biggest thing, that we all go through stuff and we're just so hard on ourselves. Just be a little bit kinder to yourself. They always say be kind to others, but be kind to yourself and really give yourself a chance to get to know who your true self is because it is a lifelong journey and it doesn't have to be as difficult as our mind wants it to be. It's just opening up your heart, surrendering to God daily and asking the Holy Spirit to really show you what areas that you want to change. Because there's hope, and be resilient, be relentless. That's what I would tell people.
Cool, cool. I would add that to don't compare yourselves to others.
Yeah,
You're on your journey. This is your journey. Don't be afraid to accept it and to share it, because like way back in the day with the businesses, you didn't want to share that you took the bus, right? You were
yeah,
ashamed of it even though they didn't know. And now today you can talk about whatever. It's like, yep, this is
yeah,
where I was, and this is
yeah,
where I'm going, and this is where I am. And
yeah,
I'm a progress every single day. So I think I would
yeah,
add that is, don't let your circumstances stop you from continually moving forward, because there's always a way. There's always a way. It's going to be patience. It's going to take a lot of hard work. You're not going to get it for free, but there's a
no,
way.
it is. You know what, Tony, if I may say, this has probably been the hardest work I've ever done in my whole life. I've told people that this past year, because I put a lot of effort and a lot of investment in myself. And I've overcome a lot of hard things, but this has been the hardest thing, and it's so satisfying in so many ways. So I'm glad I put the work in. Without the work, you don't get nothing out.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on the year.
Thanks.
Yeah. By the time this gets posted, or maybe I'll post this on the day on the anniversary.
Oh. Oh.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see if I can wait all the way until then because this was good a conversation, and I really appreciate that and just being so open and transparent. Because not a lot of people aren't. I still have trouble talking about because I don't, take a shower every day and I stink and or whatever. No, I'm just kidding.
Because you record from your bathroom and nobody knows it. That's what it is.
Wow, Monique. You know what? You remember all those times you went blank on my screen? Yeah, I might have done that.
On purpose. I would say it's
Yeah.
so good to see your face, but I would be lying. So I just want to say thank you for your time.
Your lighting is bad. There's too much of it. Turn off all the lights.
Yeah, whatever. Thank you, Tony.
All right. Well, enjoy the week and I will catch you later.
All right, sounds
This
good.
episode is brought to you by Merge Marketing. For all of your needs on print, design, web page design, and security, go to mergemarketinginc.com.